In Rene's house, a wealthy and influential man who is entering politics lives his 17-year-old daughter, Helen. She is tender and affectionate, but far too sensitive and immature, to the point of breaking down at the slightest uncomfortable moment. She is surrounded by loneliness. Her father is always working and her mother has died, so she spends her time in silence and empty expectations. Every detail moves her, and every misunderstanding overwhelms her, as if the world were bigger than she is. One day, Rene leaves in a hurry and gives Helen a number and an address. He asks her to call a very important client at a specific time to let them know that he is unavailable and will get in touch soon. When the time comes, Helen dials, waits, but hangs up before anyone answers. So, she decides to go to the client's house, as if an impulse were pushing her to see up close what lies on the other side of that message, opening a door she doesn't yet understand. The house is next to a monastery, imposing and silent. There, an attractive woman opens the door, and Helen discovers that this important client is actually her father's lover. Nervous, she stammers that Rene sent her, as if the words were getting stuck in her mouth. The woman observes her calmly, understands who she is, and gestures for her to sit down, like someone inviting you into a foreign and dangerous world. Helen hesitates but sits down, caught between curiosity and confusion. While they drink tea, the woman doesn't take her eyes off her, and Helen starts to feel exposed. The woman gently asks her why she has come, and Helen replies that her father never told her to go to the house, only that she should call. Then, the woman suggests that maybe it was curiosity, and the word hangs in the air like a trigger. Helen smiles, drawn in by her presence, but fear quickly paralyzes her, and she stands up to leave. At the door, the woman stops her and tells her that she has noticed Helen likes women, though she senses Helen is still unsure whether she wants to be with one. Then, she introduces herself as Tamara and lets her go, awakening a desire that can no longer be ignored. Shortly after, Helen receives an invitation to a social gathering organized by Tamara. Apparently, Tamara has asked Rene to introduce her to his daughter, and that request draws everyone into a game of appearances. Amidst guests and conversations, Tamara appears, sits next to Helen, and admires her discreetly, under the watchful eyes of Rene and other curious onlookers. At the same time, Helen glances at her out of the corner of her eye, captivated by her beauty and by the calm with which she occupies the space. In a fleeting moment, Tamara moves her hand closer to Helen's without anyone noticing, and Helen takes it and caresses it gently, until Rene interrupts, and the contact is broken, leaving behind a tension that does not dissipate. The next day, Helen visits Tamara. Tamara opens the door, just out of bed, and slips back under the covers, inviting Helen to join her with a disarming naturalness. Before anything happens between them, Tamara sets a condition. She asks Helen never to get angry with her, saying there will be fun times and others that won't be as enjoyable. Then, she defines herself frankly. She's 38 years old, divorced, and has lost a fortune, as if laying everything on the table so as not to hide the weight of her past. Helen accepts without hesitation and assures her that she's not that old, nor is Helen that young, and she moves closer to touch her, driven by an emotion she can't control. Tamara invites her to lie down beside her to talk, but the conversation doesn't last long. Their closeness envelops them, and soon they become affectionate. A passionate kiss is born out of urgency, as if time itself contracts in that first impulse. Suddenly, Tamara stops and interrupts the moment, imposing a pause that leaves Helen burning inside. In the days that follow, Helen leaves home early, pretending to go to school, when in reality she searches for Tamara in every corner of her routine. She follows her to a stable, and among familiar people, Tamara acts indifferent, as if nothing is happening between them. When they are finally alone, the barriers fall and they move forward in intimacy with restrained emotion. For Helen, discovering this new world is dizzying and addictive. Sometimes she gives herself so insistently that Tamara has to ask her to leave, setting boundaries that hurt her. Later, Tamara asks Helen to tell her father that they spend time together. Seeing the young woman's resistance, she gives her 3 days to do it and orders her to comply. Helen trembles at the thought and, overcome by fear, says nothing to Rene. When Tamara finds out she didn't obey, she slaps her and yells that she must follow her orders, asserting her authority without remorse. Helen, hurt and angry, replies that she will never see her again and runs out, barely holding back the tears that later burst out in her room, where she breaks things as she goes. Still in her innocence, Helen returns to Tamara's house to ask for forgiveness. Tamara lets her in, but treats her coldly and doesn't allow her to sit, forcing her to remain standing, uncomfortable. Confused, Helen confesses that she loves her, as if throwing herself into the void without a safety net. Tamara appears indifferent and throws her out. Desperate, Helen bangs on the door and begs for forgiveness until she collapses to the ground and cries. At that moment, Tamara opens the door, picks her up in her arms, and carries her inside, where she punishes her by pouring cold water over her head. Then she forces her to kneel and beg for forgiveness, and when she does, Tamara kneels beside her to take her fiercely, closing the circle of submission. In the following days, Rene calls his daughter to his office. He shows her an anonymous letter. Has someone seen Helen leaving Tamara's house? The letter suggests that it is scandalous for them to spend time together, given Tamara's bad reputation, and recommends sending Helen to a convent and breaking off all contact with her. Rene tells her that hiding things damages the trust between them and that the rumors could harm his political campaign, which is the future for both of them. He asks her not to lie to him, to avoid misunderstandings, and to tell him what she does with Tamara, seeking clarity amid the rumors. Helen, in a low voice, explains that it was out of curiosity that time he gave her the number and address. Since then, she assures him, they talk about women's issues, read, and Tamara helps her with her studies. Rene is surprised that they get along so well and sees nothing wrong with them spending time together as long as she doesn't hide things from her or neglect her schoolwork. She considers the matter closed and Helen leaves. Next, Helen visits Tamara with great excitement. The letter was an invention by both of them. A maneuver so that Rene wouldn't get suspicious and they could move about freely. Their complicity strengthens their bond, as if a shared lie were a pact of loyalty. The trick works, and Helen feels it as a precarious victory. But the calm doesn't last, because new elements intrude on their fragile balance. As time goes by, Helen goes to Tamara's house after a social event and finds Max there, an old friend of Tamara's who has come to visit her. The man's presence makes Helen uncomfortable, and she reacts with jealousy and suppressed tension. The conversation between them becomes superficial and distant, a cold exchange that irritates her. In the end, Helen leaves in a bad mood, unable to process what she sees and fears. Later, when Helen is about to turn 18, Tamara takes her to a bar to eat, and then to a private area where a lesbian club operates. There, women of all shapes, sizes, and ages dance, smoke, drink, and kiss, with the music brushing against bodies that seek each other out and then pull away. To Helen, it all seems excessive and completely unappealing, and her expression hardens. Tamara, on the other hand, finds it amusing and decides to drink excessively, laughing more than usual. Then she asks an acquaintance to invite Helen to dance, and the young woman reluctantly agrees, caught between obedience and rejection. The woman dancing with Helen starts to flirt insistently, which annoys the young woman. The acquaintance warns her that Tamara has a bad temper when she gets angry, that she can become unrecognizable, and drops names from the past. She tells her that Tamara had a young lover named Emily, on whom she spent her entire fortune, and asks if Helen is also after her money. The question hurts and enrages her, convinced that she knows Tamara better than that rumor. Suddenly, the woman suggests they go for a walk alone. Helen refuses because she knows Tamara wouldn't like that. Annoyed, Helen escapes from the woman and looks for Tamara so they can leave. But Tamara is so drunk that she can't even walk, and her laughter is interrupted by stumbling. They are given a private room inside the club so they can rest and get away from the noise. The door closes and the silence becomes thick. The intimacy, heavy with alcohol and memories, gives way to a shadow from the past. Alone in the small room, Tamara starts confusing Helen with Emily. She accuses her of lying and of having left with someone else, projecting an old wound onto the present. Suddenly she hits her, and Helen screams that she's not Emily, that she's Helen, trying to make herself seen in the midst of the delirium. Tamara can't tell the difference. She says she saw her dancing with someone else and that she's betraying her. And then she grabs a belt and whips her. Through her tears, Helen keeps repeating that she didn't want to leave with anyone, but her words don't save her. Tamara beats her until she calms down and then sits next to her to comfort her while asking her not to lie, perpetuating the cycle that links harm and care. In the next scene, when Helen visits Tamara, she runs into Max. He tells her that her father and Tamara have gone to Venice for 6 weeks. Helen takes it like a stab to the heart. It hurts her that they're together, far away, sharing what she wishes she could have. Max senses her sadness and suggests they go for a ride on his motorcycle and sleep together, trying out a different kind of intimacy. Helen laughs, says she can't imagine it, though curiosity brushes against her, and she asks if he would find her attractive. Max assures her that she's beautiful and suggests that they could have something. Helen kisses him shyly but pulls away, unable to sustain the gesture, reaffirming what she feels. A few days later, Helen falls seriously ill. Max takes it upon himself to find a doctor and stays attentive, filling a void he doesn't know how else to cover. After 3 days, Tamara and Renee return upon hearing about the illness and hear the young woman calling out for Tamara, shouting her name with a need that is disarming. Tamara comforts her and takes care of her with dedication, and Helen gets better in a couple of days, the color returning to her cheeks. Max brings her flowers and chats cheerfully with her until Tamara shows up. Max seems annoyed with the woman, and Helen doesn't understand why, although she senses that Tamara has been making plans with Renee during her absence. Over time, Helen makes a full recovery and goes to see Tamara to be alone with her. While they're together, the phone rings, and during that call, Helen realizes that Tamara is going to marry her father. The news hits like a sudden blow. For Helen, it's a betrayal that leaves her breathless. For Tamara, it's an opportunity. A way out at her age and with her history, with a man of power and money who changes her future. Tamara assures her that she only loves her. But for Helen, that statement is meaningless, as if it confirmed that she had been used to get closer to Renee. Upset, Helen seeks out Max and asks him for help to break off the engagement. She believes that if she tells her father everything, he will break the promise before it becomes public. Max partly agrees with her, but warns her about the consequences. Sooner or later, the rumor will spread, her reputation will be ruined, and her father could lose his position. He asks her to be cautious, to think about what could be set off, and Helen is caught between her impulse and the fear of destroying everything. A few days later, Renee tells Helen that she plans to marry Tamara. She says that under normal circumstances, she would have asked if she agreed, but she believes that Helen cares a lot about Tamara, considering she spent hours at her house and, when she was sick, would call out for her. She adds that it's clear Tamara cares about her, since she worried about her during her illness. For those reasons, she concludes that it would be a good idea for Tamara to become her mother. Helen doesn't respond. She just looks at him with contained anger. Sometime later, when Tamara and Helen are alone, Tamara tries to kiss her. Helen resists firmly and decides that she no longer wants to continue with her now that she will be her stepmother and that their relationship must end. Tamara understands the barrier that has risen between them and feels frustrated at not being able to force her, as if the control she once had is crumbling. Distance asserts itself even though neither of them says anything more. A few days later, Renee and Tamara get married in a civil ceremony. Helen attends unhappily, as if she were trapped in a dream she can't wake up from. After the wedding, she hears Tamara talking to her father about a textile business, suggesting plans to take advantage of Renee's fortune and influence. The comment leaves Helen with a bitter certainty, with no room left for doubt. The new reality settles into the house, heavy and foreign. In the end, Helen realizes she has been used, and that her father lives deceived, unaware that he has married the woman who took her innocence. Shut away in her room, she weeps inconsolably, her world shrunk to 4 walls. The house remains silent, as if waiting for a truth that no one dares to speak yet, while the future hangs by a thread that could snap at any moment.